Last created dialog item. Alright. Now to create a scroll up button, I can simply do set variable. And go into the settings, find my scroll buttons. 1 is going to be scroll up, and 0 is going to be the button. It's going to be function create dialog button, and then I just have to supply the offset X and Y. Offset X, once again, we're pretty much adding everything in a straight line down. It's just going to be 50. Offset Y, it's going to start on 50, and we're going to add on it as we go. It's going to be offset X and offset Y. We're going to have to add the image for the button. That's a bit more tricky, and we're going to have to fine-tune it and stuff. But so we're going to create it in here because it's kind of custom. Width height is probably going to be something like 64 times 32. We're going to find an image to use. So scroll, maybe should be some scroll button somewhere. Oh, I think I used these ones in my map. Arrow up. Tiled, set to false, that way it stretches, so it will become the size that we set here. And you can also rotate an image if you want to scroll left or right. There is a rotate set dialog item rotation here, so you can rotate it. Anyway, offset, I'm just gonna calculate. So we're gonna take the offset X plus what's the width of the button? 100. So maybe it's not gonna be exact. We're gonna have to tweak this for ages. It takes ages to tweak. I'm just gonna try something. So we take the offset Y of the button plus maybe it's 50 height, isn't it? So 5, whatever, 10 maybe. Doesn't matter. I'm gonna go into our data setup again. And I'm going to call our selection dialog initialize. Then I'm going to go into the initialize function and create a dialog show. Show last created dialog. This way I can start testing it, just to see that the map works and that we don't have any fatal crashes. So I'm just going to launch it. And I'll try to remember this time to not hit F10 when I want to go out of the game. There we go. This might be a bit laggy for you guys. I have the trigger debugging enabled. There's our up button. You can see the image is not perfectly aligned. That's tweaking. You have to move it around, maybe size it up and down, but it works. The width of the dialog is way too wide, so I'm going to shrink it down. That's also something you can tweak. But whatever, it's a start. Let's just get moving and create the rest of the buttons. So dialog width, I'm just going to tweak on this as I go. Create the item buttons. Before we can do that, we need to modify variable integer. We need to modify the Y offset. And we need to do so we're going to plus on the screen dialog settings. the height of the button plus the spacing. I went into the wrong one, apparently. There we go. Plus the spacing. So that way each button will appear, well, after each other below on the dialog, and we can easily change how far apart the buttons should be just by, and the size of the buttons and so on, just by tweaking it a bit. So let's create the buttons for each. Temp button numbers, we're gonna need a variable here. I'm assuming you know how these things work. So 1 to the max buttons that we have, increment by 1. We're gonna need this thing in here. We're gonna need a create variable set, this creation, and not scroll buttons, but item buttons, and the index is gonna be our button number. That's it. Now we should have 5 buttons appearing in a row after our little arrow up button. Let's test it. And there we go. 5 new lovely buttons created below it. I'm gonna make this, of course, a dialog width is not correct here since I haven't set it here. Uh, 350 maybe. I don't know. Let's see. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Let's try it again, just to see the dialog width. This is what you do most of the time when you create a dialog. Yeah, we can shrink it even more. Maybe 40 more pixels or so. 310, whatever. Let's get moving. We need to create a scroll down button. So I'm just gonna repeat this, copy this thing up. Down button. Scroll down button is 2 here. You might have noticed that I forgot to set my image. Let's create a dialog item. There we go. Need to set the image reference as well, so we have it for later. And for the image, we're going to do exactly the same thing, except that we're going to use the arrow down. So, arrow down. I'm not going to bother with the position of the image, because, well, I don't care enough to fix that right now. It takes time. It will take me 10 minutes just to tweak around with the settings to get it correctly. Alright, so finally we're going to need these 2 lines again, and we're going to need this one. Create scroll down button. Create select button. Select button, and create a dialog button. Set dialog item text. Select. You can use a style here if you want. I'll use this style. For all players, for our variable. I can't use last created dialog item because I didn't create it in this function. So I have to use the reference there. Alright, let's see if that works. I run it again. Yeah, we have the 5 buttons up and down. We can see it. We need to adjust the height. The width is a little bit smaller, should be. So we're gonna shrink the width to 95. So here we're gonna do a dialog size. Set dialog size, last created dialog. Width is going to be variable dialog width. We don't need this. I'm going to rename this one to additional height. And I'm gonna set it to 100. The height is gonna be, we're going to take our offset Y and we're gonna add on our additional height. There we go. Save that. Try it again. Okay, I added on a bit much height, but you'll see the dialog has scaled correctly. The image buttons are obviously not centered, but I don't care. But the good thing here now is because of the way this dialog creation is structured. So if I just add 50, maybe it should be a bit wider now. So 300. Because the way this is structured,